Reports of a time disturbance lead the Ninth Doctor to modern-day London, where he discovers a Neanderthal man, 28,000 after his race has become extinct. A trip back to the dawn of humanity only deepens the mystery. Who are these strange humans from the far future, now living in the distant past? The Doctor must learn the truth about the Osterberg experiment before history is changed forever. I kind of wish I had a time machine so I could go back in time and read a different book. I wish I had a time machine so I could go back and make sure you never saw that. Oh wait, I have editing. Hey there, Photo Reviews here, coming at you with another book review. Another book we decide if it's worth reading over second breakfast or deserves the fiery pit of Mount Doom. So let's get started. Today's book is a Doctor Who expanded universe novel. I don't know what they call the novels, so I'm just going to call it an expanded universe unless otherwise directed. Today we're bringing you a Doctor Who expanded universe novel named Only Human by Gareth Roberts. Now, a bit about the author before we start. The author has been known to write Doctor Who things in the past. He's written other Doctor Who books, a spin-off book that actually started in 1993 when he wrote The Highest Science, which was part of the Doctor Who New Adventures, back before the revival, but I guess it was based on a deleted script from one of the original Doctor's runs. I'd have to look it up again to tell you exactly which one, but he's also written actual episodes of Doctor Who, though mostly only in the revival. He wrote the episodes of The Shakespeare Code, The Unicorn and the Wasp, The Lodger, and Closing Time, as well as the episode The Caretaker with Stephen Moffat. There is something else about him that's not really good. He has a small history of transphobia, but I'm not really going to go into that because, for the most part, it doesn't affect this book. It's not. These biases aren't present in the book, and I'm here to review the book, not talk about the author. I may do author studies in the future. I may not. I do know I have one video in mind to talk about stuff that authors do like that, but this is not the episode for it. So I apologize for anyone who wants me to go deeper. So, on to the book. Now, this book was published on September 8th, 2005. Its general ratings online were actually pretty good from as far as I can find. A 3.9 on Goodreads, a 4.6 on Amazon, and a 4.1 on Barnes & Noble. So yeah, the Amazon one is actually rather high, though the Goodreads and the Barnes & Noble is about average, from what I can tell. There's not much trivia behind this book that I could find. The only thing I can really think of mentioning is that this was a reprint of an already... The specific edition I have is a reprint of a book that already existed for the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who. You can kind of see the TARDIS up there with the word 50 in it. This whole new cover for it. Even kind of mentions it on the back. But really, it's not important because they didn't really do much else for this beyond that. So with that, we'll go on to the cover. Like I said, not much to talk about in terms of trivia or how the book is. So, the cover is bland. There's really not much to talk about on this cover, front or back. You got Christopher Eccelstein standing here. He is the front cover. That's pretty much all it is. And he's sort of fading away. And I don't really know why. It doesn't fade away in the book. I can kind of think of something in the book that might be referencing this, but it never happens to the Doctor himself. So this cover tells you nothing other than it's about the Ninth Doctor. Which, I mean, I thought the Ninth Doctor deserved more time. Christopher Eccleston was a pretty decent Doctor, in my opinion. As a book cover, it's not good. The back is just the short synopsis that I read in the beginning, along with, I think, a little timeline back here, where you can see the TARDIS hopping along it. I don't know what the significance of this particular line is. I don't know if it's the novels or something. I can check. I have a second 50th anniversary edition called Beautiful Chaos with the 10th Doctor, but I'm not going to check it right now. It's not really important. So yeah, with that done, there's not much else to talk about in terms of the cover or anything, so we'll go on to the characters. So, the characters as you know them are pretty much the same. The first of the characters is the Doctor. This is his 9th incarnation. Now, for those of you who don't know Doctor Who, I'm kind of surprised you clicked on this video, to be completely honest, but let me explain. The Doctor is part of a time-traveling alien race which uses these machines, called the TARDIS, to travel through space and time. Now, he is the last of his kind, and his kind has a strange ability to basically, when they die, regenerate into a brand new form. Now, despite what others may tell you, considering the recent buzz, the Doctor's forms can be absolutely anything, although they most often tend to be human. This means the Doctor can be white, black, Asian, alien. He can be a man or a woman. It really, the generations have no limits. He's the actor Christopher Eccelstein. Then there's his companion, Rose Tyler. Now, again, for people who don't know, the Doctor often always travels with a human companion, typically female in nature. The companion is someone from our time, from modern day, who often serves as the audience surrogate. They're the ones who don't quite know what's going on, the one the Doctor explains to. And it does kind of suggest that the Doctor keeps them around because they're kind of like, they keep him grounded in a way. A couple of times the companions have been the heart of an episode and remind the Doctor of what he should be doing or how he should be using his power. Rose Tyler, I honestly don't remember much about her, other than some of her less savory traits that wouldn't be present in this novel because it's too early. So I'm going to move on from there. I honestly don't have much to say about her. But it's been a while since I've seen the first seasons of the revival. The third main character, he's more of a side character in this, which is unfortunate, but the third character is Captain Jack Harkness. Now, Captain Jack Harkness is sort of a human time traveler. He was picked up in the episode where Are You My Mommy became the haunted nightmares of many people for a while. The Captain Jack Harkness is actually a personal favorite of mine. I know he got his own series called Torchwood, but personally, I always felt he was very underused as a Doctor companion. Not as his own character, but as a companion himself. He bounced well off the Doctor and having that same kind of confident energy, but without all the years of experience the Doctor had. So the minor characters. We're going to start with Das. Das is the Neanderthal that was sent back to the 21st century and gets trapped in that timeline. Now, I like his character, but he's really not important to the story after they find him, and I'll elaborate more on that in the complaints. Then there's Quealy. Now, he is a refuser, and you'll find out what that means soon, but basically, in a future where everyone drugs themselves into what I call a state of apathetic euphoria, Quealy is one of the few people who doesn't. And again, I really like his character. And he is a bit more important to the story than Das was. And then finally, we have Chantel. She's our antagonist for the evening. Now, we're introduced to Chantel in the prologue when she's a kid. And she basically takes her cat in, dissects it, and then promptly remakes it into a reptilian hybrid monster that is so good it wipes out the entire species of mice in like a year. So she's kind of crazy. There's not much to talk about in terms of her character. She's basically every maniacal mad scientist there is out there, with a slight dash of I want to replace humanity by killing them all, and I can also time travel a bit. That's all I gotta say, really. Not much to say about her. With that done, plot! So the plot. The plot is actually fairly simple. While Rose and the Ninth Doctor are planning to go to a sort of vacation planet, or to some place that's weird to go see it, the Jack Harkness notices that the TARDIS is alerting them to a rip engine time machine. Now, rip engines are basically jury-rigged time machines, backwater. They're like the water purifier that only gets out 10% of the dirt. And they're very dangerous to use. Not only do they pollute the time stream as it's put out, but in this book, the rip engine that's being used basically pollutes the cells of the person who goes back or forward in time, meaning they can never time travel again. Otherwise, the time particles will cause their cells to turn inside out and then promptly rip to pieces. So not a very fun time. Now they go to modern 21st century England, 2005 modern 21st century England, where they discover that a Neanderthal has been sent forward in time. They manage to free him from the hospital while the military looks like they're about to take him into custody, and they find out that he was venturing around prehistoric England when he found a hollowed out tree that led down into a futuristic research facility and got sent back and get sent forward in time. So the Doctor leaves Jack Harkness here, since they can't take back Das due to the time pollution of his cells. So he leaves Jack Harkness here to help Das acclimate to the 21st century, while he and Rose go back in time to figure out what's going on. So they go back in time, and they quickly search for him. It's really not hard to find him, and they find a research facility called the Osterberg experiment, where it's from the 48th century or the 41st century. One of the two. I'm not going to open this and recheck, to be completely honest. I don't want to open this book again. But they're from a time when, after humanity lost all of its electronics in a massive solar flare which destroyed everything, and they've gone back to the analog. This has resulted in them heavily speccing up their chemical. Basically, everyone here drugs themselves into a constant state of, as I said, drug-induced apathetic euphoria. Everyone here is so drug-induced against any sort of negative feeling that they're apathetic to anything that happens. Like, you could literally rip their head off and they'd just be like, oh, well, that was a bother. They find that the experiment is being run by this group who, it says they're just studying the Neanderthals and the cavemen. Now, Rose leaves this part of the section to go study with a guy named Reddy. The Doctor stays behind and seems to start getting along with the refuser, Quilly, who refuses to drug himself up and believes in feeling emotions as they should be, even if they're negative. Now, all that's really... I'll get more into this later, but all that's really important is the Doctor's plot. The Doctor's plot involves him investigating the Osterberg experiment, finding out that Chantel actually is developing a hybrid monster called the Hybractor. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but Hybractor, which she plans to unleash upon prehistoric Earth to wipe out Neanderthals and humans all over the planet and replace them as the dominant species for the future. She does this because she believes humans are inefficient and they're just not good. While she briefly gets an edge over the Doctor, drugging him up to a state of euphoria and, you know, getting the one-up over him, the Doctor eventually is able to free himself and Queely and is able to fend off the Hybractors by weaponizing Chantel's own science against her. He basically briefly evolves all of humanity using some kind of stomach bacteria. I'm just accepting this. I'm not sure how close the science is. I do have a book back there called The Science of Doctor Who, but basically he causes them to rapidly evolve to be able to breathe fire. And that's how they kill most of the Hybractors. Except one, which they end up leaving behind after finding out that they're extremely gullible. And the Doctor basically just lies to him and says, no, Chantel said no more eating people. After that, Rose and the Doctor go forward in time, pick up Jack Harkness, attend Daz's wedding, and then take off. Now you're thinking I left out a lot. I didn't talk about Rose or Jack. That's because they really don't matter. Now Jack... We do get some of Jack and Das's perspectives in the future. It's basically Das acclimating and Jack venting his frustration with how hard it is to get a prehistoric caveman to accept modern-day concepts that are foreign to him. such as lying. See, Das doesn't believe lying is a thing. He just believes people are mistaken. He even goes on about how the shows he watched, he thinks people are being trapped and then hurt for others' amusements. So, yeah, his thing doesn't really matter. I guess it kind of ties into the theme of only human, but it only kind of. I wouldn't say it's worth it. Now, Rose's plot is a little different. Rose goes out with Reddy to go investigate Now, Reddy is one of the Osterberg researchers. She goes out with Reddy to investigate the Neanderthal tribe. She wants to study them, dealing with the guilt that humanity wiped out Neanderthals in the prehistoric time. Now, while they're there, and after discovering Reddy has a girlfriend amongst the Neanderthals, it's kind of weird. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure why. I guess it kind of ties into Reddy trying to re-accept his actual emotions rather than the drugs. While they're there, the cavemen nearby attack the Neanderthal tribe and capture Rose. Now, they believe Rose is a captive of the Neanderthals, so they think they rescued her. Rose is able to convince them that she's from a caveman tribe further up the river, and grooms their nails to get on their good side, to the point where they like her so much they try to force her into a marriage with the chief's son. And basically she's stuck in that until the doctor comes to get her after finding out about the Hybractors. Now, she's able to convince... She goes through with the marriage just long enough so that they have to listen to her because she's technically the chief's daughter now, or the chief's wife. She's basically the chief's wife now, and they have to obey her authority. So they run off to escape the Hybractors while she goes back with the doctor to try to stop them. And all in all this contributes to the story. Her husband chases after her and ends up killing one of the Hybractors with his fire breath before being promptly scared off by the doctor and Rose messing with futuristic science, where Rose is just ahead but still talking. Like I said, in reality, there's no... It really doesn't matter. Both Rose's and Jack's subplots are very... They're not part of the theme. They don't really go into a theme of what it means to be human. I'm going to move on before I start ranting. So with that, that's the plot. I know I kind of ranted a bit. I kind of stretched it out, but that's all I got to say. I was kind of pushing a bit there. I got to go on to the personal opinions. Compliments. For a long time, I struggled over these compliments. I had two, but then I realized one of my compliments kind of contradicted a tiny bit, a bit with my complaint. So, unfortunately, I only have one compliment, and I'm keeping it here just to help break it up. Compliment one, and only. I like the expanded lore. Yeah, no, this book does what I think every book in an expanded universe should do. Expands the lore in such a way that when I go back and watch or play or view the original media it's based on, I can appreciate it with a new level of understanding. And this does exactly that. So I love that. One such thing in this book that does is the TARDIS language filter. For those of you who don't know, once you step under the TARDIS, the Doctor's time machine, it basically mentally implants a translator into your head. Like, psychically, not so much like it rips open your head, puts a computer chip in there. But, it cyclically implants a translator into your head, where no matter where you go, it'll appear that those people are speaking your language. That's why in Doctor Who, when they travel place to place, everything seems to be speaking English. They're not really speaking English. We're just hearing English because we're viewing this through the companion's eyes. So yeah, the language filter, though, is a nice little lore because it actually tells us that the TARDIS filters out bad language as well. Meaning that if someone was to curse at you, I can't do it because of YouTube, but if someone was to let out a string of curses at you, you wouldn't hear what they'd say. You hear things like heck, hells, fudge, freaking, things like that. And I just think that's very cool. It adds a subtle hint of humor to everything before this, because I can go into the Revival series again, rewatch it, And if I want to, I can imagine that someone, every other word they say is just pure profanity. But we never know that because the TARDIS like, no, bad. So yeah, unfortunately that's my only compliment. So I do apologize for people hoping for more, but as you can tell, this book didn't quite live up to expectations. So unfortunately, I must go on to personal opinions, complaints. So I'm going to start simply. Complaint number 1. This book has real bad writing. I don't even mean that in just a metaphorical sense. It's got typos that I am ashamed are in here. There's one such typo where the letters 145 is directly in the middle of a paragraph with no explanation why it's there. There's one paragraph that has a sentence that has absolutely no spaces between the words. There's punctuation errors. This is just a real sloppy printing, and I'm going to chalk it up to the fact that this is a printing error and not an editing error, because this is a reprint. So if anyone has the original, can you confirm for me if it's as bad as this is? It's just, that got to me. The second part of the bad writing is that this book is very, not quite so bad to be called facile, but not, I don't think it's as in-depth as it should have been in The Doctor. Everything is rather, everything in this is kind of milquetoast. It's bland. I've never really appreciated how much the Doctor, the actors of the Doctor, brought their personalities to the Doctor to bring him to life until this book. I say this without a shred of irony. This honestly feels like Gareth Roberts picked up a cut script from the Ninth Doctor's run and just translated it into being a book without doing much else beyond that. It really, you don't get a sense of the Doctor's eccentricity. You don't really get a sense of the places they are. You get character. The characters are captured well enough. I really liked Daz and Queely, but it's not very good. It's all I can say about it without just repeating myself. It's just not written well. If you were going into this hoping to see the Doctor leap off the page with his eccentric attitudes and his sonic screwdriver, you're going to be disappointed. That's all I can say. So complaint number 2. The lack of cohesion. Now, as you kind of could tell with my plot synopsis, and I kind of started ranting a bit, the plots are not cohesive with each other or even the thematic element of the book. The plots just kind of happen in their own separate spaces. If this was a series, these would be slight cutaways for the comedic relief to be fitted in to break up the main plot. And it just doesn't work with this book. This book is only 222 pages. 222 pages long. So there's no reason to break up the main plot, especially with the fact that it's sort of almost double spaced and the words are big. Jack and Daz's subplot they don't connect to the Doctor's and Rose's at all. We don't see Daz worrying about his family or anything and then seeing them in the next cutaway to Rose or the Doctor. We don't see Jack wondering if they remembered this, and then we see them forgetting that. It's not really used to anything except break up the main story. And while it does attribute to the thematic element of what makes a human, at least I assume that's what Roberts was going for, it doesn't quite do it well. I don't really get the sense that he's trying to explore what makes a human and what doesn't in this. I get the sense that he's more using it jokingly. A Neanderthal's not a human. Look at all the funny misunderstandings he has about modern human culture. With Rose's subplot, it's even more disconnected. For the most part, Rose's subplot does not matter. In fact, Rose's subplot does not matter. She's extraordinarily guilty about how humans wiped out the Neanderthals. We don't really see her interact much with the Neanderthals, though. After the caveman attack, that's pretty much her last interaction with the Neanderthals, and we see her adapting to the caveman life, where she earns the way into good graces by manicuring them. I don't know why a caveman would put much stock into that, but in it, she's mostly just trying to escape, and other than that, no, I can't really say much. This Rose's subplot doesn't matter much in the grand scheme of things. We don't even explore what it means to be human in that subplot either. It's just killing time, to be completely honest. With the Doctor, and the Doctor's is the one that does explore it the most, but there's a surprisingly little amount of focus. The Doctor's is the one that explores it the most, and I don't think it explored it in a very convenient way. I think there should have been a better juxtaposition between the unbridled emotions of cavemen and Neanderthals mixed with the drug-induced euphoria of the Osterburgers. There was a good storyline in there, a good thematic comparison. Unfortunately, Roberts didn't really take that comparison, and it just feels wasted. So that's all I got to say about that, without just rambling and repeating myself over and over. So that's my two main complaints, but they're really big complaints, as you can tell. So I have to go on to nitpick and gushes. Unfortunately, I don't have any gushes. I apologize. But for the new nitpicks, the first nitpick is, how did Reddy survive? So for those of you paying attention, Reddy was the person that Rose went out with to study Neanderthals. We found out that he had a Neanderthal girlfriend named Ka, who, after Rose convinces him to throw out his drug badge, his emotions causes him to go up and kiss her, and they start dating briefly before the cavemen attack. Now, it's implied the cavemen killed a whole bunch of them, and we don't see Reddy afterwards, so we'll have to assume, okay, maybe Reddy died. Then later, when they find the Neanderthals again, because Doctor and Rose go to warn them about the Hybractors coming out, we find that the Hybractors actually already got to the Neanderthals, and only 6 of them have been left alive. And those 6 were only left alive so Chantel could drag the Doctor and Rose into a trap, knowing they would try to warn them. And among those 6, we don't see Reddy again. So again, now we're pretty much, he's dead. However, at the very end, because they have to leave Quealy and what survives of the Osterbergs behind, since they got here on the Rip engine and trying to take them back would rip them to pieces, we see that, oh no, Reddy was alive the whole time, and there he is, smooching his girlfriend. And it's just like, how? How did he survive all of that? There had to be some explanation. The second nitpick is, the cavemen are surprisingly modern in this. Now, I'm not a historian on cavemen myself, so I don't actually know how accurate this is. And I don't just mean this in the terms of how they speak. That's brushed away with the TARDIS language translator. What I mean is, why do they have concepts of marriage? Why do they have concepts of manicures? Why do they have concepts of all these modern day luxuries that we have? And they actually appreciate them. Like even Das earlier on talks about how where he's from, if you have a spear and a rock, you're pretty much suited for the rest of your life. So yeah, to me it doesn't make any sense why not only they have these concepts, but they actually value them. Which is a small nitpick on mine. I may even be wrong. They may have done this. With the nitpicks done, we come to the final verdict. 4 out of 10. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wanted to like this book. I actually think Eccelstein was a Doctor that deserved a lot more time than he got. And I was hoping that this, after seeing Jack Harkness in this, I was hoping this would be great. But it wasn't. And I think one of the biggest... I'd say this unironically, but I do honestly think Roberts took a script of something that got cut from the earlier seasons and just made it into a book without expanding on that. And scripts and books are not written the same. They don't have the same level of nuance since you aren't writing for a novel. Now, I also think that another big problem that this book had was that it only wrote for the fans. And I know that's a weird complaint to have, but when you write a novel, you have to anticipate that someone is going to pick this up that hasn't watched Doctor Who. And this book isn't really interested in explaining anything to anyone who doesn't watch Doctor Who. As far as it's concerned, if you pick this up, you're already a fan. You're just picking it up because it's Doctor Who. And that's a big downside. Like, I even talked about Mass Effect Revelation earlier on this channel. And I talked about how, while I did like it, it was written as a companion piece to the first game. You won't appreciate it fully unless you've played the game or plan to play the game. But in comparison, it still stands on its own if you were to read it. It's just not as good. If I hadn't watched Doctor Who, this would not have stood on its own at all. So, unfortunately, it's got that going against it too. Do I recommend it? No. I definitely don't recommend it if you're not a fan. This isn't going to do anything to change your mind. Even if you are a fan, I have a hard time recommending this. Maybe I'm missing something, but because a lot of people online seem to love this book, even calling it the best of the novels. I just failed to see what was so interesting about it, though. It did a lot wrong, in my opinion. So, unfortunately, I can't recommend it. And when it comes to the question, does it deserve Mount Doom? Unfortunately, yes, it does. And I apologize to people who enjoyed this book. I'm sorry I couldn't see what you saw in it. Now, I was told that I did make a mistake last video. That the holiday that I had been made aware of that I missed was not actually referring to Doctor Who in the slightest. It is actually referring to something that takes place in the stars and often deals with wars. And, yeah, obviously. You know what? It was stupid of me to think that Doctor Who was the series that they were talking. They even went further and explained to me that a fan-beloved character from the series was brought back in the newer expansions and ruined in the latest works. And it's just like, yeah, of course. I mean, who doesn't love Star Trek: The Next Generation? But until then, this has been our photo reviews. And remember, with every book comes an adventure. And every adventure is worth having. Even if it's a bad one. Goodbye.